This relationship is the first time you've actually
loved myself and been open to loving and being loved by someone else.
It's actually, you can't actually be old school in a world where social media is in charge of pretty much the world.
She punched her cheating boyfriend, ran down a London street, and turned her pain into a Grammy-winning anthem. But that was only the beginning. For over a decade, Adele has poured heartbreak into chart-topping ballads. Behind every song is a man, and behind every man is a mess. Some cheated, some demanded her money. One tried to claim credit for her success, and the man she's about to marry, well, rumors say he's hiding something Adele may never recover from. How does a woman with the world's most powerful voice keep losing herself to the same kind of man? This isn't just a story about heartbreak. It's a story about betrayal, obsession, and the hidden cost of turning your personal pain into global hits.
What piece of advice would you give to your 19-year-old self?
That your love life's gonna get a lot worse.
So buckle up, because Adele's love life, it's not a fairy tale, it's a warning. Before she was the Adele we know today, before the sold-out stadiums, the Grammys, the heartbreak anthems that bring grown men to tears, she was a 19-year-old girl standing outside a pub, broken and breathless. She had just caught her boyfriend cheating. Not through rumors, not from a friend. It was raw, immediate, undeniable. The kind of betrayal that rips your stomach in half and makes your hands shake. So she did something impulsive, something honest. She walked right into that pub and punched him. No tears, no words, just rage.
I got into bed last night because I found myself singing, I'm working late, I'm a singer.
Security threw her out. She ran through the dark, deserted streets of London, her heart pounding, her mind racing, her whole world collapsing under the weight of a single lie. She wasn't chasing him anymore. She wasn't even sure what she was chasing. And then it hit her. She was chasing nothing, just pavement. That image, so simple, so sad, stuck. And that night, something else was born. Should I give up, or should I just keep chasing pavements? That one lyric would catapult her into global stardom. But it didn't come from a songwriting session or a calculated studio moment. It came from a night of heartbreak, humiliation, and total emotional collapse.
I'm starting to not understand it myself now, because everyone's like, I don't get it.
And here's the thing. This guy didn't just inspire chasing pavements. He was the shadow behind nearly every track on her debut album, 19 to Cold Shoulder, Tired, First Love, and more. Every time her voice cracked in those early songs, it was because of him. But what happened after the album dropped? That's where it gets disturbing. Once Adele hit fame and 19 became a critical and commercial success, the same man who cheated on her and sparked one of the most raw albums of the decade had the audacity to demand a cut. He started calling, not once, repeatedly, seriously, calmly. He wanted royalties. Why? Because he had inspired her music. He thought that being the villain in her story somehow made him a co-writer. He didn't play a chord. He didn't pen a line. But because his betrayal turned into her triumph, he believed he was owed a piece of the pie. Adele shut it down hard. She told him, point blank, "You made my life hell. I lived it. Now I deserve it." That wasn't just a breakup. It was a battlefield. And it was the moment Adele learned something about the world she was stepping into. Being vulnerable in public doesn't just invite praise. It invites predators. But even that emotional fallout wasn't the worst part. Behind the scenes, Adele was spiraling. She canceled a US tour. At the time, she cited family issues.
Shocked. It's because the way I pronounced the words in this song when I was 19 years old.
But later, she admitted the truth. She was drinking. A lot. And it was all because she couldn't bear to be away from him. She described that period as her early life crisis. She was addicted to love, even if it was toxic, even if it was tearing her apart. Quote, "I was drinking far too much, and it was kind of the basis of my relationship with this boy. I couldn't bear to be without him, so I was like, let me just cancel my stuff then. That wasn't just a lost tour. It was a moment where Adele nearly lost herself. And still, he gave her material. She'd later say, almost with a bitter smirk, I got a second album out of that relationship, so everything's okay. But was it?
This next one that I'm going to do for you was my first ever proper single, Anywhere. And if you know the words to it, have it.
Her career was skyrocketing, but her emotional life was in ruins. Fame didn't heal the wounds, it just gave them a soundtrack. And there was one more twist that most fans missed. One track from 19 Daydreamer wasn't about the cheating ex. It was about a bisexual man she fell in love with on her 18th birthday. She confessed her feelings. Hours later, he left her for one of her gay friends at her own party. That betrayal hit differently. She said, I was like, we're not even going out yet, and he's already cheated on me. Even that moment made it onto the album. Daydreamer is about the version of him she wanted to exist, the version that never did. By the time 19 blew up, Adele had already lived more emotional trauma than most people experience in a lifetime.
I'm not gonna lie, guys. Last night I had some Chinese food after the show, and then this morning I had a really big breakfast.
But the public didn't see that. They saw a rising star. They heard a voice that made them feel something, but they didn't know the pain behind it. And pain is the fuel Adele keeps burning. Every love story she's told the world starts the same way, with her giving everything and the man taking too much. But this was just the beginning. The next relationship would last longer, cut deeper, and leave her wondering if she'd ever be whole again. If Adele's first heartbreak was explosive, loud, and public, her second was something else entirely. Quieter, deeper, slower, like a wound that never scabbed over. After rising from the chaos of 19, Adele entered a new chapter.
19 when she recorded Chasing Pavements. You know what I was doing at 19? Failing general chemistry.
Her voice was stronger, her fame growing, and her confidence, at least on the surface, seemed unshakable. But then came Alex. To this day, fans don't know exactly who he was. Adele has never confirmed his full identity. Some say it was a fashion photographer named Alex Sturrock who traveled with her during her early tours. Others say Alex is just a stand-in, a ghost of a man who left behind scars but no name. What we do know is this: he changed everything. Their relationship lasted around 18 months, longer than her first. And at one point, it got serious, really serious, engagement level serious. Adele hinted in interviews that they were close to tying the knot before it all fell apart.
This is going to be a discussion about Adele, singer Adele, world famous, right? You know, she's a woman.
This heartbreak didn't come with a single betrayal or fight. It unfolded slowly, painfully, like watching a house collapse in slow motion while standing inside. And the wreckage? It became 21, one of the most emotionally devastating albums of the 21st century. Think about that for a second. Rolling in the Deep, Set Fire to the Rain, Someone Like You, 3 of her biggest hits, all inspired by one man, one heartbreak, one emotional landslide. In her own words, the entire record's about this one relationship. Rolling in the Deep was written when I was really, really angry. Someone Like You, that was me on my knees.
Did you see Adele doing it on carpool karaoke?
Of course, and I love Adele. That's my baby. I love her so much.
Oh, in the first time.
Rolling in the Deep was the anthem of defiance, the sound of a woman saying, "You'll regret this." But Someone Like You? That was something darker, more honest, a quiet confession of defeat. I can imagine being 40, looking for him again, and finding him happy, with a beautiful wife and beautiful kids, and I'm still on my own. It was heartbreak mixed with self-blame, longing wrapped in loneliness, and it hit because it was real. She wasn't just singing about love lost. She was mourning the version of herself that loved blindly. And here's what's even more haunting. She thought she had the upper hand. She told Spinner magazine, "I'm not willing to be walked all over like I was before. I have the upper hand now."
The greatest male singer in the world today.
Today, probably Bruno Mars.
But her lyrics tell a different story. One where she tried to be stronger, and still ended up broken. The irony? She once said she didn't want to date anyone famous because it would be too obvious if she wrote about them. But fame or not, Alex became a legend in pop music without ever stepping into the spotlight. His silence made the heartbreak louder. His absence made the lyrics timeless. The relationship with Alex was the emotional opposite of her first. No punches, no chaos. Just silence. Just fading. Just the slow death of something that once felt inevitable. And maybe that's why it hurt more. Because this time, she couldn't blame bad behavior or a single mistake.
There was a video of Adele talking about how espresso was the last thing she thought about before she went to bed. We have a clip.
Sometimes love just doesn't last, and there's no one to hate for it. Still, Adele didn't walk away empty-handed. She walked away with 21, a record that shattered charts, swept the Grammys, and cemented her as one of the most powerful emotional storytellers of her generation. But the cost? It was steep. And it wouldn't be the last time she'd fall in love hoping it would fix something inside her. Because the next man in her life wouldn't just inspire a song. He'd become the father of her child. And eventually the center of her most painful transformation yet. By the time Adele met Simon Konecki, she was tired. Tired of chasing. Tired of being hurt. Tired of writing chart-topping songs that left her emotionally shattered in private. And then Simon walked in. He wasn't a celebrity. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't part of the toxic industry cycles that Adele was quietly drowning in. He was calm, stable, grounded, an entrepreneur who had co-founded a water charity, a man who wasn't dazzled by her fame, and most importantly, a man who didn't want to be written into a song. At first, it was perfect. In Adele's words, I think Simon probably saved my life. She wasn't being dramatic. She was being honest. At that point, she was rising fast and burning out even faster. The drinking, the emotional instability, the longing for love.
You may remember Adele and her husband breaking up in 2019, but what you might not know is the alleged real reason why.
It was all catching up to her. And Simon, he was her anchor. She called him the most stable person I'd ever had in my life. And then came their son, Angelo. Born in 2012, he became Adele's entire world. She stepped back from the spotlight. She talked less about heartbreak and more about devotion. Songs like Sweetest Devotion and Water Under the Bridge weren't about pain anymore. They were about the terrifying possibility of happiness. She even admitted that Water Under the Bridge was written during a moment when things got serious too fast. It was about a relationship suddenly getting really serious and getting frightened by it, then realizing, this must be right.
I think Simon probably saved my life, to be honest with you. He came at such a moment, whereas the stability that him and Angelo...
By 2018, Adele and Simon were married, quietly, privately, no Instagram wedding, no tabloid spreads, just love. Or so it seemed. But here's the twist. By the time the public found out they had gotten married, they were already headed for divorce. In 2019, Adele and Simon announced their separation. And in 2021, the divorce was finalized. No messy legal battles, no tabloids full of cheating scandals, just a quiet unraveling of what seemed unbreakable. Adele explained it herself with brutal honesty. Neither of us did anything wrong. It just wasn't right for me anymore. She wasn't angry, she wasn't bitter, but she wasn't happy either. I was just going through the motions. And I would have been miserable if I didn't put myself first.
Okay, what do we have here?
It's pretty amazing.
All right. Celine Dion's.
That's the part that hit fans the hardest. Because this time, the heartbreak didn't come from betrayal. It came from the terrifying realization that even the safest love can stop feeling right. Adele admitted she held off the breakup for years, that she tried to make it work, that she stayed longer than she should have, for Angelo, for comfort, for fear of the alternative. The more and more you put it off, the worse it gets. And I'd been putting it off for years. And then came 30, an album that was less about anger and more about grief. less about revenge and more about rebuilding. Her song Easy on Me was a plea, not to Simon, but to Angelo.
What are you doing? Why are you all bothering him? Can you leave him alone, please?
Yeah. With that being said, stand up.
A moment of vulnerability where she begs her son to understand why she walked away. Go easy on me, baby. I was still a child. Didn't get the chance to feel the world around me. It wasn't just a breakup anthem. It was a mother's apology. And in that one chorus, Adele made it clear. Leaving Simon broke her heart, but staying would have broken her soul. Still, this divorce was different. Adele didn't turn it into drama. She didn't bash Simon in interviews. In fact, she still praises him publicly. Even now, I trust him with my life. And that's the part most people forget. Yes, it ended. But Simon was the man who gave her stability when the world was spinning too fast.
So obviously, Taylor Swift and Adele are like the queens of songwriting, but I want to know, which one do you guys think is
the man who stood beside her through fame, motherhood, and transformation? He didn't leave her in pieces. He left her changed. But as Adele tried to rebuild her identity as a mother, artist, and woman, new rumors began to swirl. And her next relationship? It wasn't just complicated. It came with whispers of cheating, secret affairs, and a growing fear that Adele was once again falling for a man who didn't deserve her. After the quiet collapse of her marriage, Adele didn't jump into a new relationship, at least not publicly. She went quiet, focused on herself, focused on Angelo, focused on healing. But behind the scenes, something unexpected was happening.
Look, this is Adele doing her Monsterverse.
Ooh. Killed another career, it's a mild day.
In 2019, whispers started to spread. Not from tabloids, but from Instagram comments and flirty exchanges that fans couldn't ignore. Adele, the queen of ballads, was suddenly linked to a name no one saw coming. Skepta, a British grime rapper, a Tottenham native, just like Adele, and someone whose life and world were miles away from the one she'd built with Simon. At first, it seemed like a stretch. They were old friends. They shared mutual circles. They'd even publicly praised each other's work. But then, things got interesting. In the comments of a casual Instagram post, Skepta dropped a cryptic message. I have your Instagram password, LOL.
Big Smoke in the Big Smoke.
Yes.
I have wanted to meet you for many, many years.
Likewise.
You make music. You make clothes.
Adele replied with a wink emoji and a heart. Fans lost it. The internet went wild. Was Adele dating a rapper now? Was this the start of a totally new era? For a moment, it looked like it. Sources claimed the relationship was heating up and that Adele was having fun again. And for a woman who had just come out of a decade-long commitment, that was a big deal. But Adele, she shut it all down. Just weeks later, after her SNL performance, she addressed the rumors directly. I'm going back to my cave now to be the single cat lady that I am. Classic Adele, director, funny, disarming, but not necessarily convincing, because the lyrics told a different story.
We need to talk about this problematic SNL sketch where Adele constantly broke character because the show received immediate backlash for it. Before I show you the video.
In her 2021 album 30, the song Woman Like Me hit a nerve with fans, especially the ones paying attention to her time with Skepta. She sings, I know it's hard, but it's not. We come from the same place. Tottenham, their shared hometown. A quiet nod that made listeners wonder if the track was a reflection on the almost that never fully bloomed. And then came Skepta's 2020 track Mic Check, a song where he raps about dating someone much more famous than him. A woman with global reach, a superstar. He never says her name, but he doesn't have to. So what really happened between them? Was it just a fling? A rebound? A friendship that teetered on something more? No one knows for sure, but what's clear is that Skepta was a turning point.
Right, Adele, good to have you back.
Thanks.
Hope things are going well with Skepatron. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask any personal questions because that's not me.
For the first time in years, Adele wasn't chasing anyone. She wasn't writing songs about devastation or dependency. She was flirting, laughing, testing the waters, trying to see who she was outside of marriage and motherhood. It wasn't a fairy tale. It wasn't forever. But it was necessary, because even though Skepta didn't break her heart, he reminded her that she still had one. And just when things seemed quiet again, when it looked like Adele had finally figured herself out, she met the man who would change everything. A powerful, charming mogul who swept her off her feet, and who may be hiding the most devastating betrayal of all. After the ashes of her marriage and the rumors of rebound flings, Adele seemed to finally find something solid again.
Adele is never gonna win an EGOT, and here's why. In one of her carpool karaoke's with James Corden, he actually brought up the fact that she was a tone.
In 2021, she stepped out with someone new, someone powerful, someone outside the music industry, but deeply embedded in the world of fame and fortune. His name? Rich Paul, super agent, CEO of Clutch Sports Group, the man behind some of the biggest names in professional basketball, a force in his own right. And for the first time in years, Adele didn't just look happy, she looked in love. They made their public debut at Game 5 of the NBA Finals in July 2021. A few months later, she went Instagram official with a black and white photo of the two of them looking polished and powerful.
So Drake put up this thing and he was like, I'm so proud of my best friend,
Oh, yeah.
right? Which was lovely. Yeah. What I thought was meaningful about that was you're in such a rarefied...
In interviews, Adele couldn't stop gushing, "I've never been in love like this. I think I'm obsessed with him." She looked radiant, renewed. After years of songs drenched in heartbreak, this time her smile told a different story. Or so we thought. Because while the headlines painted a picture of joy, the whispers never stopped. By 2024, the couple was reportedly engaged. Adele even told a fan during her Vegas residency, half-jokingly, "I can't marry you, I'm already getting married." It should have been a fairy tale. But behind the scenes, the cracks were starting to show. There were reports of canceled shows, shifting schedules, a postponed wedding with no official date.
You know me, T-Rex, I don't really talk about my personal life.
Yeah.
But respectfully, I'll just say, anytime.
And then the rumors got darker. A mysterious book began circulating online, a novel, but not really. The title, The Last Good Girl on Earth, Home-Wrecking Weekend by author Ever Ing. The story? A barely disguised narrative from a woman claiming to have had an affair with a man nearly identical to Rich Paul, down to the career, the fame, and the famous British fiancé with the unmistakable accent. In the opening scene, the woman describes being caught in Adele's house, by Adele herself. She says she was sleeping in their master bedroom when Adele FaceTimed Rich. And when she walked past the camera, barefoot on the marble floors, Adele's face crumbled. It sounds like fiction. But the details, they were too specific, too familiar.
I like Adele. I like Adele. I ain't gonna lie. I see a lot of myself in her. I know she's soft.
The woman even quoted Rich as allegedly saying, "She was going to find out about you at some point. Was it true? Was it a smear? Or was it something worse?" Adele never responded publicly. No statements, no denials, no lawsuits, just silence. But then came the emotional fallout. She started canceling more shows, adjusting her Vegas residency, breaking down on stage. Rumors began to swirl. Was history repeating itself? Was she about to give up her career for a man again, just like she did in 2008? Because if the book was true, Rich Paul didn't just break Adele's heart, he broke her spirit. The same woman who once canceled a tour for a boyfriend was now tangled in another emotional tug-of-war.
She's never known a love like this. I believe that some women just...
And the stakes were higher this time. She wasn't a rising star anymore. She was Adele, a global icon, a mother, a woman who'd already lost too much for love. Some fans began to notice a pattern. Adele gives, the men take. From punching her way out of a pub to watching her world crumble in her own kitchen, Adele has always poured herself into the people she loves, no matter the cost. And Rich, he may have been the most dangerous of them all, not because he screamed or cheated, allegedly, but because he made her believe it would finally be different. That this time, it was safe. That she didn't have to write another Heartbreak album. That she could be happy. But even now, no one really knows what's going on behind the scenes.
east side of Cleveland.
Yeah.
125th in Edmonton.
Yeah, St. Clair, 125th in Edmonton is like...
Adele says they're still in love, that they're still engaged, that she's never been happier. But the question remains, if this is love, why does it still feel like heartbreak waiting to happen? By now, it's hard not to notice the pattern. Adele isn't just a woman who writes heartbreak songs. She's a woman who lives them, over and over again. Each man in her life leaves behind a different kind of wreckage. Cheating, manipulation, emotional dependency, betrayal. And every time she turns the pain into platinum. But there's a deeper question behind the music. Why does this keep happening to Adele? She's not naive, she's not foolish. She's one of the most emotionally intelligent songwriters of her generation.
This relationship is the first time you've actually
loved myself and been open to loving and being loved by someone else, yeah.
But when it comes to love, she falls the same way every time. All in, no breaks, eyes closed. And it's not by accident. In interviews, Adele has admitted that she hates confrontation, that she prefers to write things down rather than argue out loud. Even as a child, she says she'd write letters to her mom during fights instead of yelling. If I had an argument with my mom, I would write down how she made me feel. I've always processed things through words. So when relationships fall apart, she doesn't explode. She bleeds onto the page. She doesn't scream at her partners. She immortalizes them in song. And that's part of the problem.
And he came in and was stable. The most stable person I've ever had in my life.
Because when you're that good at turning heartbreak into beauty, it gets harder to spot red flags. Pain starts to feel like purpose. Drama becomes familiar. Chaos starts to look like passion. Adele once canceled an entire US tour just to be with a boyfriend who drank too much. Years later, she was still canceling shows. This time not for love, but for someone she thought was worth losing everything for again. She's admitted that in her early relationships, she was emotionally dependent. Clingy, afraid to let go, terrified of being alone. I couldn't bear to be without him, so I canceled everything. This vulnerability made her relatable to millions, but it also made her a target.
If you've been keeping up with the blind items, you'll know that Rich Paul was alleged to have cheated on Adele many times, and according to this new blind item,
time and time again, Adele has attached herself to men who, intentionally or not, take advantage of her ability to love without limits. And here's the cruel irony. The deeper she falls in love, the more powerful her art becomes. But the higher the cost to her actual life. The men she chooses don't just inspire great songs, they leave behind real damage. And when the spotlight fades, the fans go home and the album cycle ends, Adele is left alone with the ruins, picking up pieces, explaining breakups to her son, pouring her soul into another record that will top charts but tear her open in the process. She once joked that she didn't want to date anyone famous because it would be too obvious if she wrote about them.
Adele's fiancé Rich Paul's mistress is writing a book that she claims is fiction but is alleged.
But what if fame isn't the issue? What if the real problem is a woman who gives too much and men who mistake vulnerability for weakness? Because if you look closely, each man in Adele's life has shown her the same lesson in different disguises. The first cheated, then demanded a paycheck. The second faded without warning, leaving a lifetime of what-ifs. The third gave her stability, but not forever. The fourth made her feel alive again until it wasn't real. And the fifth may still be hiding a betrayal she hasn't even processed yet. Adele keeps trying to find peace in other people. But peace doesn't come from a man, it comes from finally choosing herself.
Here's a new blind item that is allegedly about Adele announcing that she is getting married, but Rich Paul not wanting to move.
And maybe, just maybe, she's starting to understand that. Because her latest album, 30, isn't about someone else breaking her. It's about her breaking free. Adele didn't ask to become the voice of heartbreak. She didn't sign up to bleed for her art. But that's exactly what happened. Each album, each lyric, each trembling vocal run is a piece of her personal story. Cut open, examined, and set to music. Millions of people listen to Adele when their hearts are broken. But who does Adele listen to when hers is? She's turned betrayal into beauty, silence into sound, pain into power. But power has a price.
And the Grammy goes to, get up here, best friend, Adele.
And for Adele, the cost has always been love. We watched her fight for toxic men, chase impossible dreams, and cancel her own success to hold onto something that was already gone. We saw her rebuild, fall again, and pour her grief into melodies that echo across generations. And even now, wealthy, adored, decorated with awards, she's still fighting for peace. Not in the charts, not on stage, but in her heart. Because while the world cheers when she wins Grammys, they forget she had to lose something first to earn them. Adele isn't just a voice. She's a survivor, a woman who keeps hoping, keeps believing, and keeps giving. Even when the people she loves don't deserve it. Maybe that's why we love her. Because no matter how many times she falls, she always finds a way to rise. Louder, stronger, and more honest than before. And that's what makes her timeless. She's not chasing pavements anymore. She's walking her own path, one broken lyric at a time,